France braces itself for yet more violence as the funeral takes place for a teenager shot by police. The 17-year-old's death has prompted rioting nationwide. Thousands of people have been arrested in 4 nights of violence. Also tonight, energy bills are finally on their way down, but up to a quarter of households will still struggle to pay. England's hopes hang by a thread at Lord's and...
3, 2, 1.
Exploring the dark universe. Liftoff for the space telescope that hopes to solve the heavens' biggest mystery.
This is ITV News with Lucy Watson.
Good evening. Hundreds of mourners have turned out in France for the funeral of the teenager whose death has sparked rioting across the country. Nahel Merzouk was shot dead by police at point-blank range on Tuesday. For 4 consecutive nights since, young people have gone on the rampage in cities across France. Shops have been looted, town halls attacked and police stations firebombed. And more than 1,300 people were arrested last night alone. Sejal Correa is in Paris and reports now on a country in turmoil.
A 4th night of clashes on the streets as the riots spread across France. This, the centre of Lyon. A protest had drawn more than 1,000 people into the city. It ended in violence and 35 officers injured. In Marseille, cars were set alight, climbed upon and vandalised, while shops were looted. Violence that continued through the night. By daylight, there were running battles with the police with fireworks used as weapons, the police responding with tear gas. The violence sparked by the death of 17-year-old Nahel Merzouk, shot dead by police on Tuesday. Today, thousands of people came to pay their respects at his funeral in the Paris suburb where he was killed. This video showing the moment just before he was shot at point-blank range by a police officer after the teenager was pulled over during a traffic stop. The officer has now been charged with Nahel's death. While the shooting has revived anger about policing and racial profiling in the country, igniting simmering tensions between police and young people, resulting in the worst riots in France in years. The French president is remaining in Paris, cancelling a scheduled visit to Germany, with fears that tonight could bring another night of violence.
Sejal, there's been violence now for 4 nights running. The 5th night is about to begin. Is there any chance that tonight could be more peaceful?
On the contrary, Lucy, actually across France they are preparing themselves for more protesters on the streets again tonight. Major events have been cancelled. Buses and trams in some places will stop running from 9 o'clock tonight. Businesses have begun boarding up their windows. Extra police and armoured vehicles have been sent to some cities, and curfews have been imposed on miners in other areas. France is really bracing itself for yet more unrest tonight.
Sejal Correa in Paris, thank you. Most British households will start paying less for their energy than they have done in some time from today. A new energy price cap came into effect at midnight, reducing the average bill by more than £400. But bills are still almost double what they were before the pandemic. And it's estimated that more than a quarter of households will remain in fuel poverty. Ellie Pitt has more.
Because this is what they sent me.
Tabane Sitale worked as a critical care nurse before she retired. Since she stopped receiving government help towards her energy bills in March, she's found her electricity meter demands more and more of her money.
I wake up at night and I start thinking, and I think, I thought I budgeted well, and all of a sudden I'm on a negative balance on my bank account. You'd like to have some warm water for baths and stuff, but you find you have to be very careful.
But now average household energy bills should come down. Until yesterday, under the government's energy price guarantee, households were paying an average of £2,500 a year. The regulator Ofgem's price cap is now below that, so the amount the average household can be charged is £2,074, a more than £400 difference. But our bills are still high by recent standards. Less than 2 years ago, typical household bills were just over £1,200 a year. Soaring wholesale gas prices following Russia's invasion of Ukraine saw the cost to the supplier passed on to UK customers.
I think most analysts would say that the spikes may be becoming more stable, but we have stubbornly high energy prices for the foreseeable future. We're still paying £1,000 more than we did at the start of the energy crisis. So look, let's look at the facts. Anybody who thinks the crisis is over isn't paying attention.
Prices are expected to drop again in October. But like many customers burned by the energy crisis, Tabernet doesn't trust that her costs will fall until she sees the money on the meter last a bit longer. Ellie Pitt, ITV News.
A woman and 2 children have died and a man is in a critical condition in hospital tonight after a fire in a flat in Cambridge. More than 30 firefighters were called to the blaze in the north of the city early yesterday morning. Well, Matthew Hudson is at the scene for us. Matthew, what more do we know about this tragic incident?
Well, the first fire crews to arrive found smoke billowing from one of the masonettes behind me. They managed to contain the fire and it didn't spread to any other properties. We don't yet know the names of those who died, but we know they were a boy and a girl who were initially brought out alive but passed away in hospital later, and a woman in her 30s who was declared dead at the scene. As you say, a man in his 30s is in a critical condition in hospital. The fire service has described it as being heartbreaking. A number of local people I've spoken to describe seeing the children playing with their dogs on their trampoline just about every day. There were a number of eyewitnesses to what happened, including Peter Griffin.
We'd heard rumours that the woman in the flat had died at the scene, which turned out to be true. But yeah, only learnt today that the kids didn't make it, which is, I mean, it's awful losing a mum, but yeah, no, it's horrific. Yeah.
The emergency services tell me they may be here for the emergency services say they may be here for several days to come, trying to piece together what caused this fire, which has destroyed a family.
Matthew Hudson in Cambridge, thank you. In other news, a man and a woman have been arrested over the suspicious death of a 2-year-old girl in Suffolk. Police say they found the body of the toddler at a property in Ipswich on Friday morning. Suffolk police have arrested a 22-year-old woman and a 22-year-old man on suspicion of murder. 7 Just Stop Oil protesters have been arrested for disrupting London's Pride March today. Activists sat in the middle of the road, forcing the parade to stop for around 15 minutes. And Michael Howard has defended the privatisation of the water industry, a move which he led in the 1980s. But Lord Howard also admitted to the BBC that, with hindsight, some of the companies have been allowed to borrow too much. Sport now, and England have been set a huge 371 to win the second Ashes test and keep their hopes of winning the series alive. Australia's batsmen looked to be heading towards an even higher target, but an England fight back kept them in the running, with the slimmest of chances of victory at Lord's. Chris Scudder is there.
They've been queuing up to see England's new attacking style and what it lacks in grace. The accusation is also that so-called Bazball is just too reckless to beat the Aussies.
We all praised it when we were winning, and I don't think this is the time to now start sort of being disappointed about it and saying it's the wrong tactics.
So should England change back to being a bit boring?
No, England should carry on. England should absolutely carry on.
You're laughing. Should England go back to being boring?
No. I think England...
I don't think they're boring.
Or maybe they're just missing the vocal power of the Barmy Army at Lord's.
We're not allowed in. So I actually have a tattoo there, which officially they don't want the Barmy Army in. They en masse.
So no Barmy Army, but now Bazball turned to bodyline. The aggressive short bowling that shocked the genteel cricketing world of the 1930s was back. And as the short balls kept coming, the Aussies were rocking.
Yes, they have! Steve Smith can hardly believe it.
Steve Smith gone, and Travis Head was superbly caught by Joe Root. Remarkably, the Aussies just couldn't handle it. They needed every man out there, even an injured Nathan Lyon who could barely walk to the middle, much less run to the other end. It was boundaries or nothing, and Lyon was last man to go swinging. The target for England, a tough 371 to win.
Yeah, and only ever once have England scored a total target higher than that, and I'm afraid it's not been going well. Wickets have been tumbling in this final session. Here's how it started. Ollie Pope clean bowled. England were 13 for 2 when Pope was cleaned up by Mitchell Starc. Then Joe Root was the key wicket for Australia, of course, one of the world's great batsmen. He was out for 18 to Pat Cummins, and then Harry Brook also going cheaply for 4, clean bowled by Cummins. So England in all kinds of trouble. 59 for 4, a long way from that target of 371. And the Bazball, afraid it's not working out in this Test match, and Australia are heading for a 2-0 lead tomorrow, you'd think, in the Ashes series.
You never know, Chris, you never know. England's Lionesses could only manage a goalless draw in their last game on home soil before they head to Australia for the World Cup. England came close to scoring in the friendly against Portugal. Alessia Russo had this effort cleared off the line, but they were unable to provide a winning send-off. The Tour de France got underway today, and it was a unique British 1-2 at the end of the first stage. It was a great race for Adam Yates, who finished first ahead of his identical twin brother Simon in Bilbao. It was Adam's first ever Tour stage win. And finally, 95% of the universe is missing. Scientists have calculated what should be out there and have labelled the missing stuff as dark matter and dark energy. Today they launched a £1 billion space mission to try and find it. The Euclid Space Telescope will map the universe in more detail than ever before. Callum Watkinson reports.
2, 1, ignition, liftoff.
For the hundreds of scientists working on the Euclid Space Telescope, the first few metres of its 1.5 million kilometre journey were perhaps the most stressful, as a space telescope made in Europe lifted off from Florida.
The spacecraft arrived in Florida.
It's already travelled across the ocean. Now it will head for a point in space where the gravitational pull of the Sun and Earth are equal. There it will start to map the universe, not just as it is, but as it was.
We'll start surveying about a third of the whole sky and measuring in particular the properties, the brightnesses, the positions, the distances of about 1.5 billion galaxies. So those galaxies will not only be distributed throughout space, but because it takes time for light to get to us, we'll actually be looking back in time, about 10 billion years. So between now and 10 billion years into the past, how are galaxies distributed throughout space?
Stage separation confirmed.
Funded in part by £37 million from the UK, Euclid aims to shed light on the nature of dark matter and dark energy, which make up 95% of everything, but about which little else is known. The question being asked by this small craft could not be more fundamental. What exactly is the universe made of? Callum Watkinson, ITV News.
That's all for now. We're back at 11. Bye-bye.
Today we'll see warmer temperatures moving in from the east, especially around tea time. Heinz no added sugar beans sponsors ITV National Weather.
Good evening to you. Staying blustery as the weekend wears on. Brighter skies, but showers cropping up for some will introduce just a little more cloud than we'd like. Some late and low sunshine before dusk this evening, if quite blustery out there, particularly in the brisk winds further west. And further blustery downpours into parts of Scotland, hit and miss showers through parts of Northern England and Northern Ireland into the small hours. Otherwise a dry night with the clearer skies. Temperatures dip a few degrees. But all in all, relatively mild. And into the new day, bright and breezy from the word go, wonderfully sunny into Sunday morning. But blustery downpours on and off through Scotland, Northern England and Northern Ireland, whip through at quite a pace in brisk winds. Slithers of sunshine in between. Temperatures on the modest side here. Elsewhere, more in the way of sunshine compared to today. Highs of 22 or 23 degrees out of the breeze. But for many of us, staying quite breezy and blowy, particularly further west.
Heinz no added sugar beans sponsors ITV National Weather.